As always, I am your host, Stewart Kraintz, and super excited for today's guest. This is somebody that I've been looking up to for a very long time as a life coach myself. But before I introduce her, we can only grow this show as far as you support us. So please share this out to somebody if you get any information, any value out of this. And I know you will because of the absolute expertise of my guests this week. Also, please, by the way, leave a comment in the comments below if you have like an aha moment or a nugget that you want to hold on to. We want that feedback as well so we can keep looking for new and amazing guests to have on the show. So, to introduce our guest this week, she is somebody that is what I like to call a master life coach. She is accredited through the International Coaching Federation at the PCC level. She is somebody that I have trained under directly and have learned a lot of my skill set as a mindset, success, and relationships coach. And what I love about her the most is she's just a student of life. And with that in mind, I think we're going to learn a lot today. So without further ado, I want to welcome Talie Davis-Weir on the show. Talie, thank you for being here
Of
today.
course. So good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Good to be with you and your crew here.
Well, thank you so much again. And I think what would be valuable for the audience, I'd love for you to just kick off giving us a bit of a background in how you got into coaching and how it became your current career path.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun story. I remember sophomore year of high school, really, I got to be in a lot of leadership positions in the youth group that I was a part of. And there was something so life-giving for me in just getting to see greatness in people and find ways to draw that out. It gave me so much joy, so much energy, so much. I just felt so alive doing it. And I was like, what career can do, how can I do this for the rest of my life? And I had no idea about coaching at that point. It was probably a thing, but I didn't know anything about that career path. So kind of ended up doing a lot of leadership development, especially working with a lot of senior leader groups in ministries and things like that, and loved it. Led a lot of retreats, worked with leaders, just kind of developing them and bringing them up, worked with small groups and teams, and absolutely loved that. And then somewhere along the line, I found out about coaching, and then I had a coach, and that was like, what is this? This is amazing. That was really so much life in that experience of being coached. And then one of my really good friends, she was connected to a master life coach out in California. She sat on his board, she co-authored books with him. And she kept telling me, like, Talie, you really, really need to look at coaching. It is like, it's what you do already, but there's like a whole world there for you to connect to. And I was going through a really hard season in my life at that point. And I was just like, thanks, I'm not going to be coaching anyone's life right now. I'm like dealing with my own lots of things going on. So just kind of kept shelving that, back burnering it and being like, thanks, but, and she's not somebody to push at all. And she just kept bringing it up. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And she's like, can you at least just read some of his books? Like, read some of Tony's books. They're so good. I think you would resonate so much. And, I was like, whatever, kind of giving her lip service and really never doing anything with it. And then one of the books that they co-authored together came out. She gave it to me for my birthday. So of course I'm going to read it. And just absolutely loved it. I was just like, what? This is amazing. It was so good. So I got on his website. I looked up a few titles and wrote them down, but I didn't order them. I don't know what the resistance was, but I got on the website, looked, wrote down a few titles. And then that night I had been asked to come back to lead a small group with, I had been through this leadership training and had graduated from it. And they asked me to come back and be one of the leaders of the small group. So I really wasn't even supposed to be there this night, but I said yes to doing that. Went that night. And the guy from the stage, who I'd never seen before, he wasn't a trainer when I went through the program. He was a new trainer they brought in. And he kept saying, Tony this, Tony that. If you haven't gotten your curriculum yet, we have books out at the table out there. I go out to the book table to get the curriculum for that quarter. And it was the exact titles that I had written down that day from this Tony Stoltzfus guy. I was like, what in the world? What is going on? Okay. Had my attention. Anyhow, like there were multiple wild things like that. He called me out in the middle of him, like standing up there talking. He's like, can I connect with you on break? I was like, me? And he's like, yeah. So I go and talk to him. Yeah, this whole, like, I saw this picture of you thing. It was this wild experience that somebody else had given me that same picture like 3 years before. So powerful for her. She did this whole art piece out of it. It was like so much synchronicity going on. I'm like, okay, God, you have got my attention. What is going on? And then after he kind of talked to me and shared what he was seeing, it was really beautiful. I won't go into all the details, but he was like, so I'm a life coach and it's really customary to give a complimentary free session. I just feel like there's some kind of connection. I don't know what this is with you, but if you're willing to drive, I would love for my wife and I to meet with you, whatever. So I ended up driving, I don't know, it was like 2 hours away, had a session with he and his wife, and it was beautiful, so powerful. And he's like, okay, we've been praying, have this sense that there is something on your life. We lead certification trainings for coaches. We have 1 spot left in our program. It starts in 2 weeks and we want to gift it to you. And I was like, what the heck? What the heck? Okay, God, I hear you. So that's how I got into coaching. So it sort of like ended up in this certification training. And I was like, okay, clearly I'm supposed to be here. Even though at that moment in my life with everything that I had going on, I didn't feel like I had anything to give at that time. I was just like, I'm trying to deal. I was going through a divorce at the time. And I should not be coaching anyone's life. And my friend was like, it's exactly why you should be coaching, because you're walking through real stuff and you're doing it beautifully. You're keeping it, whatever, she was just like, that's actually what qualifies you to coach. And I like could not see it then. And now I get it. I'm like, oh, I can so be with people in pain. I can like really walk with people in transition. I can, connect deeply with people in lots of different places. And I think it's the pain that we go through, the challenges that we go through that really do actually set us up to be able to give to people in really powerful ways. I just couldn't see it in that moment. But yeah, that's a piece of the story. I don't want to get too long with it, but yeah, that's kind of how I got into coaching.
Well, thank you for sharing, Talie. And you shared so much there that I feel like I want to ask you questions about, but something that's really coming up for me is hearing your story. You talked a lot about kind of like receiving these signs. And I know we were even talking about this before we hit record, but it sounds like you had a lot of signs along the path that were kind of pushing you in this direction. And maybe for the audience who have their goals, have dreams, or to your point in your story, maybe even feel an outright resistance towards something, how are they able to tune into the signs, realize that they are what they are, and give something a shot?
I really believe that there are those signs all around us all the time, for everybody. I feel like we are led, if we let ourselves be, and to the degree that we can just kind of rest back and just open our awareness to it. I think the things are all around us. Like people see and hear in so many different ways. Some people get dreams that are really significant. Other people, it's like sometimes things just sort of, you sense this something being highlighted. And if you just give your attention to it and sort of walk in that direction, more unfolds. I think other people, it's like they can, if they'll just get quiet, they can ask a question and hear, like tune in and hear an answer. For me, a lot of the time I will write in my journal and it's like a conversation almost. And however people connect with that, like source, great creator, some people say God, some people say universe, whatever that is for you. I believe that if you are tuning into the source of love, it speaks to you. So for me, a lot of times I'll journal, I'll like ask questions and I'll write in my own handwriting. And then when I sense, a direction or an answer, I'll kind of print. So it's almost like this unfolding conversation in my journal. It's so, so helpful for me. That's a way for me. But a lot of people tune in a lot of different ways. Sometimes just being in nature, you get a sense of direction. So I think it's always there. I think it's all around us. And I think learning how you tune in and how you hear is a really beautiful and important journey.
Yeah, and I feel like what I'm hearing you say is it's not anything we can necessarily intellectualize. It's more of like an embodied or like a deep knowing. Are you able to speak into that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a figuring something out like up here. It's tuning in. I don't know how to explain it exactly. I just know I think the more we play in that space and like learn how that comes for us and just take little steps of trust, and then you go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Things just kind of, I think it's more in flow that it happens, and it's just trusting, and then you trust it and you go, whoa, wow, okay, that showed up for me in that way.
Hmm.
Look for the synchronicities, and just the more you trust, I think the more that trust builds over time. And sometimes it's testing it too, like I work with coaches a lot, and this place of intuition is a really important piece of coaching.
Hmm.
So we play in that a lot with each other in practicing, because it's like you really do, it takes getting to this place where you trust your own, like you can call it intuition, some people call it a prophetic, some people call it synchronicity. I mean, there's so many different ways to talk about it. I think it's all the same thing. But it's learning to trust that in yourself, I think. And you only do that when you take risks and try things. And I think that's one of the beautiful things in the trainings that I do with coaches, is that we get to practice on each other and go, like I kind of took a risk here. I saw this picture of something. I didn't know if it was on. And, the person is like, oh my gosh, that was the turning point for me in the coaching or whatever. We get to practice with it and be messy and go, I don't know, that was kind of a miss. Maybe that was just me. And you start to, I think when you play in it, you start to see what you feel like when it's on, and then when it's not. I think it's just something you play with and practice with and have fun with. It's not a like you're right or wrong or good or bad. It's just like learning a way of tuning into yourself, into something beyond you too, and how it
Yeah.
comes. Yeah.
So I am somebody who I would like to call a fidgety skeptic,
Yeah.
or at least I had been, more
Yeah.
accurately. I think that's the more accurate way to say it. For a very long time, I feel like I am somebody who has a very strong, deep intuition, but
Yeah.
wouldn't trust it, wouldn't
Yeah.
give it any credence. And so I love that you're calling it like a practice, learning to play with it so that we can trust what's available and what's there. I'm curious, something that comes up for me that I think's related. This has been coming up with some of my clients currently, this idea of having a really big goal or dream, and there just being all these obstacles, all these
Mm,
outside forces, all these things getting in the way. And there's also this idea that if something is meant to be, it shouldn't be so hard.
mm, mm,
And I'm wondering if you can speak into that in your experience coaching
mm.
a lot of leaders out there who are up to big things in the world, and what your perspective is.
That's such a good, I mean, there is a tension there for sure. It's like, you want to set these big goals. And then for me, I think it has a lot to do with what's the kind of energy we're in. Is it this striving kind of driving, or is it more of a, like from a place of trust, like this is where I feel led to, this is where I feel like sometimes we look at it through different lenses, like what's the best use of me in the world, and what are all these clues about who I am and my strengths and where things flow that really make a difference in the world, and moving toward that. For me, it's really more about that flow. Like, is it not that there's not effort or like working hard? I have a really strong ethic. A lot of the leaders I work with have really strong ethic. But there's something that when we're like driving really hard and it's just this kind of hustle, grind, like strive energy, it's exhausting. But
Hmm.
when we feel like we're in the flow with something bigger than us, it feels more like an invitation to participate in something like that's already going on. I don't know. There's a quote by Michelangelo where he talks about when he was creating the statue of David, he talks about seeing David in the stone. So he has this block of marble, and he sees David in the stone. He just said, I just cut away everything that wasn't him. So it's less like I have to create this thing, I have to make something happen. And it's more like there's something there that I just get to flow with and be a part of. I don't know if that's coming through, that distinction, but I think it's a really subtle but really significant distinction.
Yeah. So is there any truth to needing to always be in a state of flow in order to accomplish big things?
I think it helps. I think it makes it a lot more fun. I think it makes it like you get to be present with something already happening rather than I have to make something happen. So does that
Mm,
make sense?
yeah.
And it's different than like I'm just going to sit back and like wait for the universe to. It's a active participation, but that it's really life-giving and fun. It brings a lot of joy. It brings peace. It's like I have to force this thing, or I have to hustle. I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a line there.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're surfing a wave. And like, of course, you're on the surfboard and you have to intuit stuff and you have to flow with there's effort in that, even hard work to some degree, but you're not like pushing waves. You're like surfing them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually love that analogy. I've never surfed, but
Mm.
I've heard a lot of folks. I grew up in California, by the way. I don't know if I shared that with you, but knew a lot of kids in high school who would spend their weekends up on the beach surfing. And they always talked about this deep connection to not God necessarily, but a higher
Yeah.
being, like a higher level of source energy. And I just think that's such a beautiful analogy. I'm curious, when you're feeling really disconnected, I know you mentioned journaling earlier, but how do you personally get yourself back into a place of flow?
So one of the things I do with clients sometimes is create this. I learned this from my coach, my first coach, Chet Scott. He had me create a love tos list, like all the things that I just love to do that bring me joy, that you know center me, that connect me to myself, that give me energy. So a lot of the time when I'm working with my clients, like, we look at what things do you do that leave you more energized than before you started them, that bring you into that place where it's like you just get lost in time,
Mm,
you get lost in whatever it is. And so I think having things like that you do regularly, really important. And it might seem like insignificant, like you're not driving your goal forward to go over here and just take a walk in the woods or play with baby animals or watercolor or whatever the thing is for you, ride your bike, whatever it is, dance. Yeah, I think doing those things regularly like bring you into this place. And so it doesn't feel like you're actually moving your goal forward, but you are, because you're getting yourself into a place where you're connected to you. And that's where all the creativity flows. That's where the peace comes from, that allows you to be able to have put the thoughts and the connections and the ideas together. It's like usually in that place is where you get your best ideas, you do your best work. It's not when you're exhausted because you're like, go, 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 go. It's when you're in that place of rest, when you're most connected to yourself, when you're
mm.
most connected spiritually, that the smallest little, oh, I could do it this way, that changes everything. So those kinds of thoughts and pivots, I think that really, really make a difference.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. So, something that just came up for me that I actually want to ask you about. You're somebody that is very strong in their faith.
Mhm.
And in a lot of ways, I don't know if I've ever articulated this to you directly, but you're somebody that I look up to in that regard and has been kind of like a silent mentor, even if I haven't come directly to you for counsel. I'm curious in what you're describing, what the role of spirituality, belief,
Mhm.
religion for some people plays in being able to connect to this state of flow.
Mm. I think there is that back to that place of trust and
Mm,
faith in something bigger than you. I think it takes an immense amount of pressure off of you having to do it all. When it's all on your shoulders, when all of the responsibility for everything in life is just on you, I think it's just that's heavy. At least I think it would be heavy. For
sure.
me, a lot of the state that we're talking about, that flow place, whatever, it's very connected to faith for me, that I am invited by someone bigger than me into this thing that is bigger than me. And I just like get to come be a part of it. When I'm sitting across from my client, like I come to the session knowing that there is so much at work in their life already happening. And I just get to participate with source on their behalf. Like it's me and them and source kind of co-creating, almost like composing something together. And we each bring a piece of it. But it's like there's something already beautiful and just incredible at work in their life, something that they're called to, a purpose on their life that I just kind of get to be a part of and move forward. So there's not this weight or pressure on me. It's like I just get to tune into them and to source and how that comes through me and offer whatever it is on their behalf. And it's fun. It's like it makes it fun. It's light. I don't know. And I don't carry it with me either. Like whatever they're going through, I don't have to carry that out of my session either. It's like they're in really good hands and I can come and show up and bring love and offer whatever there is that I'm sensing. And we co-create something partner together. And then, I kind of wrap them in that and I don't carry whatever is heavy for them into my day or week. Like, think of them, send love, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think there really is something about having that faith in something bigger that allows for the flow. It's like if it was all on me all the time, I can't imagine the heaviness of that. Oof, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I've been there, I think, many a time in my life, with the pressure of society, my goals, my dreams, my ambitions, also just what I think people expect of me, like those intrusive thoughts, maybe how past hurts, past traumas for in some cases, maybe affecting my current behavior in the present and how I'm relating to, the world and how I'm approaching it.
mhm.
For folks that may be listening to this and are like, yeah, Talie, this is all well and good, but like I got a mortgage, I got
Right.
kids, I got work, I got all this stuff. Like, how can they sink in to their hearts to, this sense of trust
Mm, mhm.
while still pursuing the thing that they are responsible for?
It's interesting because to me, it's not going in an opposite direction. That's actually enhancing the direction of paying the bills and being there relationally and, making all the things in your life work better. It's not another thing to add. It's like a deeper connection to yourself. I don't know if that makes
Mm.
sense, but it's not like a diversion from, it's an addition to.
Can you describe that a bit more?
Yeah, it's like when we're just living from this place of like, I got all these things I gotta like, we're in that, it's all of it's kind of a drag and it's all kind of heavy. But when it's back to that place of trust. When we're in this place of trust, like I am held and I am loved and I am invited to bring all of who I am into the relationships that I have in my life, into, my communities, the ways that there's something that can be an overflow. It's not like another thing on the list. It's like when I'm connected to me and I'm connected to source, then then it's like things can start coming out of overflow. I don't know if that makes sense, but it actually makes all of it lighter, all of it easier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it actually sounds like you're describing bringing your whole self to your present challenges.
Totally. And it allows you use the word present there. I mean, that's so much of it, I think, is getting really present in the moment that you're in right now.
Yeah. Right. Somebody once said, right here, right now is the only place where something new and different can occur.
Totally.
And that's a little mantra to support us in getting present.
Yeah.
And, I think that in learning to trust ourselves and our abilities to get out there and not only achieve, but also just be able to handle a world's worth of
Mm.
commitments and circumstances. And in doing so, we're then able to lean into like that higher calling, that higher sense of purpose.
Mhm.
And for the folks listening to this, I would encourage you to look at the places where maybe you are coming at it from a really heavy energy, and where can you step into trust? Where can you step into faith, or just a deeper connectedness to self, and know that you got this?
I know I can tend to, be up here with it. And like I hear you asking like how practically a way to just really ground into the moment that you're in. Cause it's kind of hard. You're just like, okay, be present, be present, how do you just be present? A really simple and great way to do it is to just engage your five senses. So there's a guided meditation that I do, and a lot of that is just around the beginning of it is around like just looking at what it is that you see, like looking at the beauty around you. Look at the way the light is in wherever you are right now. Look at the lighting, look at the colors, look at the texture and the movement, and just notice. And then key into the sounds that you hear. Just let yourself enjoy whatever sounds there are around you, or the quiet. Notice the smells that are around you, even like engaging yourself to just go like pick up an orange or lemon and smell it, or herbs when you pass by, or flowers, whatever, like just engage your sense of smell and touch. Notice the softness under your feet, or, something around you. Notice, just touch, and then notice how you feel emotionally. Start connecting in from that place of engaging all your physical senses to your emotional, like what's there for you, what are you feeling. Start tuning into that, and then just ask a question and notice what you hear, and really trust the first thing that comes. Just notice what shows up for you. Just be like, okay, source, whatever, God, what, if you're real, I want to have this connection that I'm hearing about. And ask a question like, would you show me, or I don't know, if you're real, would you start making it really clear to me in the next 24 hours? And just notice what you see. Might be little symbols of things. It could come in so many different ways. Something that has meaning to you. Notice, see if you remember anything that you dreamed the night before. So I think that if we want that, like we all can have as much connection to source as we want. And I think it's just like leaning in and actually start engaging and noticing what you notice.
Wow.
That's practical.
Thank you for sharing that, Tally. And so, just to switch gears a little bit, I know we've gone in pretty deep on presence,
Yeah.
connection to source, which is all very valuable stuff. But I want to make sure we talk about the work that you're currently doing as well. You not only coach people in their everyday lives, but you also coach coaches to provide this level of coaching and connection to purpose, in their own practices. And I'm would love to actually hear, first of all, like what you feel like you personally get from training more coaches to be able to do this work.
Yeah, it's interesting. At one point, probably 8 years in, 7.5, 8 years in to doing specifically like life coaching. I feel like I've been coaching for like 20 plus years, just in the context of leadership development and that kind of thing. But 100% of the time, like doing coaching as my full-time work, probably 7.5 years in. And I just had a lot of people come to me and say, I really want to do what you do, but I have no idea where to start. Like, how do you become a coach? And, I would get together with them for coffee or get on a call with them and support them. And I had a couple of my coaches say, why aren't you doing anything for these people that come, like you kind of point them in a direction, answer their questions, but you have so much that you could be giving. And at that point, I wasn't ICF certified. I had 3 other certifications, and I feel like I had a lot of training that was similar competencies to ICF competencies, but I felt like if I was going to lead a training that I wanted it to be ICF at that point. I was just like, I could put something really valuable together, but what they need to be able to open the doors that they want to open, like ICF is really what I should do. And I was kind of like, it's one of those flow things. I was like, maybe that's there. We'll see. It's just kind of sitting on the shelf right there. Like if it's supposed to happen, it'll get clear. And a friend, somebody that had come to multiple retreats that I led, I was just catching up with her one day. And she said she had gotten ICF certified and that she was going to be doing her first training to train in ICF model. And I was like, no kidding. And so I just asked her some questions, and I was like, if I took your training, would that enable me to be able to then train at some point? And she's like, yeah, the number of whatever. And I was like, can I just invite myself to be part of your training? And she's like, oh my gosh, yeah. So I took her training. It was just one of those things. It was like flow. Went through her training, loved it. And then was like, okay, so it's time. It just felt like time to start training coaches. So I love it. I feel like in terms of best use of me in the world, it's like, I absolutely love coaching. I will never give it up. I love my one-on-one. There's a part of me that felt like that whole, what's the best use of me in the world thing. It's like, there's something there to give that has that ripple effect. It's like when I pour into coaches that I really believe in, and then they go out and they're doing this work with different people. It's just like what that does, it just expands out and out and out. So it's like people really experience so much transformation, so much breakthrough in their lives from being coached. And so getting to pour into people who are going to be able to do that work, like, yes, I feel like everyone could have a coach and just their life would be better. Like, if you look at it really in any area of life, it's like any athlete that wants to be better, they're never going to try and get better on their own. They're going to have a executive. It's like not just for athletes and executives anymore. It's becoming a modality that's really out there in the world just for anybody. And there's just such incredible results. And it's really about anything you want to grow in, your relationships, your career, your spirituality, your health, anything. And there are so many benefits from coaching. So yeah, I love getting it out into the world. I just feel like more coaches, the better. So yeah.
Yeah. And you know what they say, leaders create more leaders. So I want to acknowledge you, Talie, for your leadership. I would not be the coach I am today without you being a part of my journey. So want to make sure that I'm saying that here on this show. Because I can't think of somebody I would endorse more as a coach. For those of y'all listening to this who are interested in coaching, Talie would be a great place to start. Whether you are looking for somebody to coach you just on your life, or coaching is something you're really interested in pursuing professionally, Talie is the person to go to. And so, with that in mind, I know you're talking about all the different coaches out there, the how it's not just for athletes anymore. I think that a lot of people who think about coaching, want to go into coaching, feel like they need to be like a Tony Robbins type. They need to have this like big, beautiful persona that, seems bulletproof, that they can do no wrong. Obviously, we know that that's not the case. And Tony is a human being just like the rest of us. What are your words of encouragement to somebody who feels like they have a gift for this or have a calling for this, but maybe just don't know where to start?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say there's so many different personalities out there, and people need different personalities as coaches. There's like, you're going to find in whatever personality type you are as a coach, you're going to find the people that really need and want exactly your personality type. Right. So
Mhm.
some people actually wouldn't do well with Tony as their coach. It's just not the right fit. But somebody else who's more quiet or introverted, or, it's like perfect fit for them. They feel like they get them or understand them. So I think coaches, I've worked with coaches with all different personality types, and it's really learning the framework and the modality. And if you have that, you can do that with any personality. So yeah, it's just like knowing what gets results. And then the way that you show up as a coach is going to be exactly perfect for the people that are meant to work with you. And that's all different kinds.
Good follow-up is that I think a lot of people feel the need to have a niche. Like, I am the mindset coach, or I am the personal finance coach, or I am the love after heartbreak coach, which I think is all valuable and beautiful things. And I'm also curious, in your experience, not only in your business, but also coaching people on their growth as coaches, where is there the line between niching down
Mhm.
and like limiting yourself to all these other
Mhm.
opportunities out there to provide value?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you are clear on what you get jazzed about, what you really get lit up about in terms of working with a specific kind of person, that's amazing. Because the reality is you can only have so many clients at a time. And like, there's so many people in the world. So there are definitely going to be plenty of people that are right in alignment with exactly what you offer. And I think it's just you knowing yourself or doing enough of it to know. I remember one of my coaches asking me at one point, like, who are your favorite clients? And I was like, oh, man, that's like asking, what's your favorite kid? It's kind of like, once I got the doctor that question or whatever, like, I love all my clients. He's like, yeah, but which ones do you feel like you get the best results for? You feel the most energized by when you get done coaching them? When you see them on your calendar, you get like super excited. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess. So I kind of identified a few, and he's like, what's the same about all three of them? And I was like, okay, yeah, they're all really powerful leaders. I identified some things they really do lean in some way spiritually. There's a piece of that I feel like I offer something there. Whatever, I had a few things. I was like, interesting, okay. And that's where I really was like, I got clear that leaders, specifically working with leaders. And so there is something I think helpful when you can identify where you feel like you're really offering the most, where both from where you get lit up. I think that's an indicator. And then also where you see yourself getting the biggest breakthroughs for certain kind of people. And I think if that's there, then yeah, niche into that, because that's where you're going to be most passionate. And then that's where you're going to get the best results too for people. And when people hear that's what you do, they're like, oh, that's me, rather than just being like, I'm just a whatever. I'm just a coach. I work with everybody. That's cool. And maybe you do. And maybe, especially at first, that's what you do because you don't really know. But once you've worked with enough people to sort of get an idea, like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I was going to give an example, but not that helpful.
I don't know if you've ever heard Zig Ziglar, like any of his old videos from a
Mhm.
long time back, but he always talks about being a wandering generality or a meaningful specific.
Mhm.
And so I think,
Something in that.
put it a little bit more broadly, it's the idea that where your intention goes, energy flows. So
Mhm.
if you want to plant your flag on being the next personal finance guru, like, do it and go all in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would love to hear your thoughts on what I'm about to share, which is I think people also get to be open to the feedback that they're receiving as well. Again, feedback being a neutral and valuable gift.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I first got started, I planted my flag on being a men's coach. Like, I am going to coach men.
Mhm.
And it was pretty hard to deny after a while that it was only women who were interested in hiring me for a very long time.
Isn't that funny? What made you take men's coach?
It's something that I felt called to do, I think based on where I was at that time in my life. I think particularly around the issues of masculinity
Mm,
and I allude to it a lot on this show. I don't know if I've said it specifically, but just the pressures that men have to be men in this
mm,
society.
it's real. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in putting myself out there as a coach, doing workshops, particularly during the pandemic, they're all online
Right.
over Zoom at the time. I would put myself out there. I would have something for somebody to sign up for. And it was always the goal driven, you know, go, 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 do. I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Yeah.
Women who
Oh,
don't
yeah.
prioritize themselves, don't put themselves first.
That wanted to sign up for your things.
Yeah. And
Mm,
while I don't think that what I teach is gender specific by any means, what I've learned is maybe being the alpha dog male is not who I am, and maybe I get to be more general. And
mm.
so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that as well when you have that thing that you want to plant your flag on, but maybe you're getting a lot of valuable
Mm.
feedback to go in a different direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all really important indicators. It's like, what I said about where is your desire and where you get really lit up and passionate about. I think that's an indicator. And then where you're getting results is also another really important indicator. So I think looking at both of those things and finding like, the Venn diagram where you have the circle and like where they overlap, that place in the middle there where you see yourself really passionate and lit up and where you see yourself impacting and making a difference. Yeah, I think wherever that space is, I think that's where you're going to probably have, I don't know, the best result because they're
Mm.
both really important. Yeah.
And folks, I know we're talking about coaching, but this is applicable to just about any pursuit
Yeah.
in life. Like sometimes the big goal that we have ends up being really just a foothold or a stepping stone on the way to the actual thing that we're meant to do. And going back to what we've been talking about this entire conversation, it's leaning into the trust that
Mm.
there is a greater plan or a greater possibility when we step into that. And so, Talie, I know that we've been talking for a bit now, and I know I've gotten a ton of value out of sitting here talking to you. So I know that the folks listening have as well. If they were to take away just a couple of things about coaching or the value of coaching in their lives, what would you want them to know?
That's a great question. I mean, I think having a coach, first of all, it gives you a place where you get somebody who is just tuning in to you, listening to you, hearing you. It's almost like having a cheerleader in your corner. You've got somebody that is just there to cheer you on in your life and be someone who is for you, with you, sees you. I think that in and of itself is massively valuable. Just having
Mm,
someone that's like listening and tuning into your heart and reflecting back what they hear. For me, so much gets done with my coaches in that place of just like, yes, that is exactly what I feel. And just having it reflected back is so validating and helpful. And then having somebody that sees some things that I'm not seeing because I'm like in the situation. So having somebody outside of the situation that can just like kind of gently, almost like metaphorically put their arm around me and walk me around to a different angle on this whatever situation I'm bringing up, and look at it from different perspectives that like I can only see the place that I'm standing right now. And they're like, let's look at it from this perspective. It's like also massively helpful. And so I think evoking a lot of awareness about what is there for me, or what's underneath something for me, or where does this mindset come from, or this limiting belief that I'm like believe is absolutely true. And then when I step back and can look at it and go, okay, maybe it's not absolutely true, just having some of those belief systems looked at in a really loving but confrontive way, so helpful. And then helping me look at what I want to do with whatever awareness I've gotten in a session. I'm having these ahas, like, okay, and then being able to move just those insights or that awareness that got evoked into some kind of forwarding action in my life. Gosh, it's so helpful. It's just so helpful. So I would say those are three really significant pieces. And it's just for me, in my experience of being coached, and then also for me as a coach and getting to see the value, it's like so much forward movement, things that would take years that I would maybe eventually come to, or client would eventually get to, maybe it's like happen in weeks or months. It's just like, gosh, just move life forward so significantly. I remember the very first client that I finished their first 12-month package. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, look at all you've created. It's amazing. And I'm like, kind of, almost like, I've loved working with you and things like that. And he's like, why are you talking like we're done? And I'm like, well, well, this is our last session. And he's like, I am so not going anywhere. We're doing this again. I'm like, but your life wheel, like you went from like all 1s and 2s out of 10 to like 9s and 10s. Like, this is amazing. And he's like, right. So let's just start over and redo what he's like, I can see things now that I couldn't have fathomed being able to accomplish when we started. And now it's just like, oh, that's a stretch, but that's very within reach. He's like, I just want to redo my life wheel. We'll end up all back at 1s and 2s again. And like, let's do it again. And I'm like, right, that of course, let's do it again. So it's like that. It's just forwarding things in your life, moving things so much more quickly, just because you have space. The way that I work is like weekly sessions for an hour. So it's like you have this space set aside just for you every week for an hour. And so you come and you give your attention to whatever it is that is there for you, and get breakthrough, move forward, unblock, find places of creativity, have ahas, and then get into action with it. I think coaching is beautiful. I obviously get pretty lit up about it. Yeah. So supportive.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing you light up in the last maybe 2, 3 minutes describing all of that is case in point enough. And folks, like, I'm a coach, but Talie's the master. Talie, I just want to be sure to ask, how can people get in contact with you, whether it's to learn more about becoming an ICF trained coach or to work with you directly one-on-one?
Sure. Yeah, you can email me at leadersalivecf .com, or if you want to jump on my personal Instagram is coaching with Talie. So if you want to message me on Instagram, you can do that too. Reach out, connect. If it's just something you're even curious about, but you're like, I don't know, feel free to reach out. We can connect and see if there's a fit enough. And if there is, then we can do just a connection call, a complimentary connection call. So yeah, reach out. Or if you have questions about becoming a coach or anything, just feel free to reach out.
Beautiful. And we'll make sure that all of that is linked in the show notes below. So somewhere below this video or below the link to this podcast episode, you should be able to click through and reach Talie directly. And so, Talie, this has been an amazing, amazing opportunity to have you here on the show. Folks, if you got any value out of this, please leave comment below with your nuggets, your takeaways, what you got, because Talie will want to be sure to be able to connect with you as well. And Callie, before I let you go, I just want to ask, what can you acknowledge yourself for today?
I think really probably acknowledging myself for going through hard things and allowing them to grow me is one of the gifts of my life that I get to regularly give out of. So I'm going to acknowledge that. It's such a good question. Thanks for asking it.
Of course. And the reason we ask is because we build self confidence by keeping our promises to ourselves, but only if we acknowledge ourselves for what we've accomplished or overcome. And so, thank you for sharing that, Talie. And folks, thank you for joining us this week. Again, I'm your host, Stewart Kraintz. This is your inside track to success. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Stu.